Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
All right. Welcome back, Wolf Pack. This is Fox Trevize here for we're still working on that weekly news recap from Behind Enemy Lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is not just demonetized. The truth is now bannable offense, as we will talk about later in the show. You can also follow me on Getter, where I don't really tweet or post or whatever very much. I should change that. I will try to do better. As always, great show for you tonight. But first, thank you to our sponsors. This show is only possible because of viewers like you. We would especially like to thank those of you who donate to us financially, including Kaylette, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, White Lion, Timberwolf, and the White Wolf, who gave us a very generous donation a couple of weeks ago, and we thank you very much for that. We also appreciate you liking and subscribing to us on DLive and Twitch and YouTube, when YouTube permits you to. And we especially like when you share links out to the channels on any social media that you happen to find yourself on, as the algorithm does not share our content for us. Only you guys can do that. Alrighty, well, our first story tonight, give me just a second here, is illegal parole for illegal border crossers. So, we know that the Biden administration has been letting in a record number, absolutely off the charts numbers, of illegal immigrants into this country. However, not many have reported his efforts to turn these millions of illegal aliens into citizens, not just allowing them to be in the country illegally, but actually going through the process of trying to turn them into citizens, which has long been the goal of the Democrats, because a citizen can vote legally. That is not to say that an illegal citizen is incapable of voting, as we may or may not have seen last year. But the Democrats have long wanted a blanket amnesty and have tried various backdoor methods of doing so. And Joe Biden has figured out just such a new method of attempting to backdoor all of these illegal immigrants into American citizens. Biden is attempting to covertly launder criminal border crossers into U.S. citizens to create additional Democrat voters. It makes sense for them to vote Democrat, and they also don't respect our laws. The method that the Biden administration plans to use is the immigration parole process. Parole, in the context of immigration, is very different from the term parole in the criminal context. In the context of immigration, parole is a process whereby immigration officials or the State Department or the president himself can grant legal status to immigrants that are already in the country. This defers any legal action related to their illegal entry. This parole power was given to the Secretary of State by the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952 and was delegated to unelected officials in the federal bureaucracy. This is a determination not made by judges. It is merely somebody in the bureaucracy, somebody at the State Department, somebody in the White House just says, this person who entered the country illegally is just allowed to be here now, and no more illegal activity for them. They're just citizens now. Yay. Let's see here. The reason why this process is called parole in the context of immigration. The reason why this was created For the majority of the last 70 years of which the power has existed, it has only ever been used on a handful of very unique cases, with two exceptions. The first time this parole power was used in higher numbers was for Obama's DACA presidential order. So normally what the parole was something happened where, not really on purpose, somebody accidentally found themselves illegally in the country as part of some kind of diplomatic incident, or maybe we needed a doctor or a scientist to come into the country for whatever reason, or there was some kind of mix-up with a celebrity, and just for whatever reason, we needed somebody to come to the country, and there just wasn't time or whatever to go through the proper visa process. This gave the State Department kind of a extra lever to pull in case of an emergency, that we know who this person is. They're of some high profile or notoriety. We're aware of why they're here, and so we're granting them parole just because there isn't enough time to go through the process fully for whatever reason. But what Obama did with DACA was say, instead of doing this on an individualized case-by-case basis where we know each and every person that we're granting parole to, Obama just declared for DACA that an entire class of illegal immigrants was just granted blanket parole. And so DACA is actually a process that has sat on top of the parole process and bastardized the purpose of what parole was supposed to be. Let's see here. So during the Obama administration, parole under the guise of DACA was granted to about 800,000 illegal immigrants. This is a massive misuse of the parole power, which was only supposed to be granted in cases of, quote, urgent humanitarian reasons or for significant public benefit. That is what the language that was in the act that created the parole power. This parole status is also clearly restricted in the act to only apply for a limited amount of time. In the case of DACA, it was treated as a permanent status, that they were just permanently on parole, no need to change the status at all. So what does the immigration parole allow an illegal alien to do? Well, being granted parole in the context of immigration allows an illegal immigrant to become a legal permanent resident with a green card. Permanent residents are allowed to work, get social security cards, and sponsor the immigration of immediate family members. Chain migration. They are also permitted to apply for citizenship after a few years of not bad behavior. This has caused massive chain migration already under the DACA process, not to mention anchor babies off the charts. And now Biden, but DACA was, again, it was limited to a scope of people. It's never been applied to a category of people the way that Obama did, but at least Obama tried to bound it with, only for children of illegal immigrants. Though that definition kind of got pretty soft after a while there, and it expanded out to quite a lot of people. Biden now is using the same parole power that Obama abused during his term to give legal status to hundreds of thousands of just random illegal immigrants crossing the border since he got into office. From March to October, over 160,000 illegal immigrants have been given immigration parole. 30,000 have been given parole in just the last month. DACA is a bastardization of the parole process. Originally, it was supposed to be short-term status selected by the Secretary of State, applied only to a limited number of cases on a case-by-case basis of urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. DACA now, and the way Biden's using it now, just applying it as a blanket amnesty to hundreds of thousands and soon to be millions of people, is really just circumventing what the American people wanted. If the American people wanted blanket amnesty, we would have voted that into the House and the Senate and passed it as legislation. The Democrats have certainly tried that multiple times, and it's never gotten past the vote process, because that's not what the plurality of American people want. Not even the Democrats. Right now, the Democrats control the House. They've controlled both chambers several times in the last 20 and 30 years. Never been able to grant blanket amnesty, because that's not what the people want. There's bipartisan opposition to blanket amnesty. But, like Obama, Biden's got a phone and a pen, and he's just signing executive orders, and they are stretching all of these existing laws, this parole process, just using it in whatever way he sees fit. The ends justify the means, and the ends is more Democrat voters, and the means is this parole process. So pretty much classic, just authoritarianism, using whatever powers that they have at their disposal to do whatever it is that they want. And now we've got more illegals, which we are on track for by December to have, I believe, 2 million illegal immigrants. I could be misremembering that, but I believe that we had already passed 1 million at about the July mark, about the halfway mark. So we're on track for quite a bit. Probably a story I'll cover in the next couple of weeks here is that there is an incoming migrant wave from Haiti. As we remember from last month, there was the wave of about 15 to 20,000 Haitians that got to the border in Del Rio, and then were allowed access to the country. And having seen the success of those 20,000, there is now a caravan of 60,000 with an estimated 400,000 on the way behind them. So that will certainly be a story in the coming weeks here. And you can be sure Biden will do his best to grant them all parole so that they can just stay in the country. Because, as we know, having hundreds of thousands to millions of unemployable Haitians is a urgent humanitarian reason and significant public benefit. It significantly benefits the public to have millions of unemployable illegal immigrants in the country. Alrighty, let's see here. How you doing, Adder Lupus? Good to see ya. Alrighty, so our next story here is a series of stories, which did not get a... There we go. A series of stories about the current state of our anarcho-tyranny. Now, some people think that we live in a democracy. Some people would argue that we live in a republic, but I would argue that we live under anarcho-tyranny. Anarcho-tyranny, the definition being when a state tyrannically or oppressively regulates its citizens' lives, yet is unwilling or unable to enforce fundamental protective laws. So the state will want to regulate every aspect of what you're doing, like gun control or driving your car or injecting you with vaccines that you don't want. Yet, if your convenience store is being looted or your child is being raped by a cross-dresser, as we'll be discussing in this next story, the state doesn't really have any interest in stopping those sorts of things from happening. If your house is being burned down or somebody's threatening to come in and you try to defend it, like the McCloskeys did, well, you're going to be the one that gets arrested, not the rioters, not the looters, because anarcho-tyranny. They want to regulate your lives, but they don't want to actually protect or defend them in any way. So the first story in this group of stories under this category would be a story from the Daily Wire. Daily Wire broke this story, so it made sense to cite and read from them directly. Let's see here. So they start off with Loudoun County schools tried to conceal a sexual assault case against sexual assault against a daughter in bathroom, father says. So, also, we are definitely playing with fire with this story because Steven Crowder possibly was removed from YouTube for covering the story. Not because it was false, but because it is discussing a supposedly protected class of people, mainly the trans community, and you're not allowed to... It is now YouTube policy that you're not allowed to report true things about protected classes. So... But the funny thing is, YouTube's actually wrong that the perpetrator here is not trans. They are bisexual crossdresser. So YouTube is misorienting them, which is a hate crime, I think. All right, so Daily Wire starts off with on June 22nd, Scott Smith was arrested at a Loudoun County, Virginia school board meeting. A meeting that was ultimately deemed an unlawful assembly after many attendees vocally opposed a policy on transgender students. What people did not know was that weeks prior, on May 28th, 2021, Smith says a boy allegedly wearing a skirt entered a girl's bathroom at a nearby Stonebridge High School, where he sexually assaulted Smith's 9th grade daughter. Juvenile records are sealed, but Smith's attorney, Elizabeth Lancaster, told the Daily Wire that a boy was charged with 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 1 count of anal sodomy, and 1 count of forcible fellatio related to an incident at school that day. That's pretty aggressive rape, certainly from what that sounds like. Let's see here. So if, quote, if somebody would have sat and listened for 30 seconds to what Scott had to say, they would have been mortified and heartbroken, Scott's attorney, Elizabeth Lancaster, said. As a result of the viral video showing Smith's arrest, Smith became the poster child for what the National School Board Association has since suggested could be a form of domestic terrorism. A white blue-collar male who showed up to harangue obscure political servants on his local school board. Yes, and actually, as a result of this, kind of just some additional context, we've actually had Merrick Garland from the DOJ now suggesting that they want to have the FBI and the DOJ investigating parents who are speaking up at school board meetings, be they resisting mask mandates or vaccination mandates, or as we see here with trans bathroom issues. And so it's interesting that, you know, the initial view that the public got was, oh, this kind of blue collar guy yelling and then getting arrested at a school board meeting. A week after, you've got Biden's DOJ saying, this is a new form of domestic terrorism. And then we've got this week, oh, why was he so upset at the school board meeting? Oh, because a trans kid raped his daughter brutally. Oh, that kind of changes the context a little bit, doesn't it? Let's see here. So, Daily Wire continues. Minutes before Smith's arrest at the Loudoun County Public Schools, Loudoun County Public Schools, LCPS, superintendent lectured the public that concerns about transgender policy were misplaced because the school system had no record of any assault occurring in the school bathrooms. Whoa, that's crazy, because Smith's daughter was raped in the bathrooms. So, guess we'll find out why they don't have any records of that. Then a woman wearing a rainbow shirt, a left-wing community activist, told Smith that she did not believe his daughter, Smith says. Smith's rage reached a boil, and he then had a heated exchange of words with the woman. Apparently, she doesn't believe all women. A police officer there to keep the peace in the meeting pulled on the arm of Smith. Smith yanked it away, and before he knew it, Smith says he was hit in the face, handcuffed, and dragged across the floor with his pants pulled down. Images of incidents were splashed on television screens and newspapers across the world. So this is a rather long article, so I'm going to skip around here, but I do encourage you guys to go take a gander at it on your own time. It's from Daily Wire. So we're going to skip around a little bit just because it would take me probably 2 hours to read through the whole thing. Give me just a second to find where we're skipping off to. Let's see here. All right, so an incident in a school bathroom in Loudoun County. On May 28th, Stonebridge High School called Smith to come to school where they told him that his 15-year-old daughter had just been physically assaulted in a bathroom by a male, Smith says. When he arrived, so basically the school called him up the day that it happened. They called him at work and said, hey, like, you need to come here because there's a problem. Something happened to your daughter. So when he got there, they told him what happened. When Smith arrived, he determined what it was that happened and that this was not just a case of his daughter being beaten up. Yeah, they called him and told him that it was a physical assault. And while that's true, the specific category of physical assault being rape is, that's a context that matters. The school said that it was handling the incident in-house. Smith was dumbfounded. Yeah, so you've got a Jesus Christ. You've got one student raping another one, and the school thinks, "Oh, we're just gonna handle this in-house." That doesn't seem like something that we need to have, any law enforcement deal with or anything of that nature. We'll just handle this internally. It's not a big deal or anything like that. Daily Wire continues, deputies from the sheriff's office ultimately responded to the school on that day, not to investigate the alleged rape of a child, Smith said, but because the school administrators had called them on him, being Smith, for making a scene about it. So the school said, oh, well, we'll just handle the incident internally. We don't need to get the police involved. And then Smith said, yeah, no, this kid raped my daughter. We need to get the police involved. And the school basically said, oh, you're causing a scene. And so they called the police to arrest Smith for causing the scene, not to arrest or investigate the other kid that raped his daughter. So this is anarcho-tyranny. The state being unwilling or unable, in this case unwilling, to enforce protective law being, you're not allowed to rape each other. School, state, not willing to enforce that at all. Don't want to get the police involved. But this father, Smith, speaking out against it, saying, "Hey, there's laws here. We have a process. You have to use law enforcement to do it." Because he spoke out against the state, well, now he's the problem. And so the anarcho-tyranny that we live under, they don't do anything about the rapist, but they will do something about the father trying to stop his child from being raped. So the police came and arrested him. Let's see here. So now we're at the point where, okay, so this allegedly, and it's no longer really allegedly because the father later that night took his daughter because he was injured while the police were arresting him at the school, which again is just crazy that he was the one getting arrested during this situation. He ended up going to the hospital and he took his daughter there and they performed a rape kit on her, and the hospital was able to determine that yes, indeed, a rape had occurred. So the rape is not an alleged thing that happened. She was definitely raped. It was just the sole suspect being the 15-year-old male that likes to wear skirts and use the ladies' bathroom. He's still a suspect in it. He's just the only suspect in a confirmed rape. So just to make sure that we've got the context here. And the only person who had any involvement with the police that day was the father. And again, it was him who took his daughter to the hospital and asked for the rape kit. The school wasn't interested in doing that because they were going to, quote unquote, handle it in-house, which meant not do anything about it. So here we are on the day that this incident happens. Again, rape confirmed, dad arrested, kid who allegedly raped, not investigated, not held, or anything of that nature yet. So fast forward a bit, and again, encourage you guys to go read through this because it's a very long article. We're gonna skip through a little bit here. Very, very long article. Let's see. Trying to get to the next section here. Okay, so as I just said, nothing happened to the kid, not yet. And the dad got arrested. So what do you think happened? Oh, well, look at this. A second sexual assault. So Smith, the dad, said nothing as his likeness traveled around the world as the avatar of ignorant bigotry after he was arrested at a school board meeting, which this we talked about at the beginning of the story and was discussed more through the parts that I skipped over. Like I said, the image of him being arrested at a school board meeting, that was used as propaganda to say that there's this uprising of racist, anti-woke parents at the school board meetings, and the DOJ saying that this is a new form of domestic terrorist. And so you've got this dad all summer has been smeared as the face of this new domestic terrorist. And Daily Wire continues that he didn't say anything because advisors told him it would be better to let the process against his daughter's assailant play out and not to risk interfering with it because, that might taint the case, might taint a jury, might do something to prevent justice from being played out. So they told him, be quiet because you might disrupt the investigation, and not wanting to ruin anything, he decided to stay quiet most of the summer. Let's see here. Quote, "It has been so hard to keep my mouth shut and wait this out. It has been the most powerless thing I've ever been through," Smith said. "I don't care if he's homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual, transsexual. He's a sexual predator." That's a heck of a quote there. The culprit was expected to plead guilty on October 14th following the negotiation of a plea agreement. But on October 6th, the sheriff's office put out a press release that led Smith to believe the process was not working. The press release says, quote, "A teenager from Ashburn has been charged with sexual battery and abduction of a fellow student at Broad Run High School. The investigation determined on the afternoon of October 6th that the 15-year-old suspect forced the victim into an empty classroom where he held her against her will and inappropriately touched her," the press release said. And here's the kicker. A government official told the Daily Wire that the name of the student in the second sexual assault case, it was the same boy who had allegedly assaulted Smith's daughter. So they didn't do anything all summer. They had arrested Smith after he was upset that his daughter got raped. They didn't do anything to her rapist. And then he went on to rape again. Oh, so you want to know what anarcho-tyranny is? It's this. All right, so skipping ahead again, or wait a second. Skipping ahead again. So you got the aftermath. So the kind of summary, again, the story's got a little bit more nuance if you read through the whole thing, but I think we hit the broad points. The aftermath, Daily Wire sums it up as this. 2 girls allegedly sexually assaulted in school 4 months apart by the same person, and so far, the only person to be convicted of a crime in this situation is the father of one of the victims. That's anarcho-tyranny. The predators get to go free. They get to rape and terrorize the community. Anybody who speaks out against it, they will be convicted of a crime. Which brings us to our next story here is from last week, possibly the week before, depending on if you consider Saturday to be the end of the week or the beginning of the week. So from the New York Post, suspected Texas high school gunman released on bail 1 day after teacher and students shot. Wow, that's pretty quick. So you have multiple people shot and the gunman released on bail 1 day after. It's pretty fortunate for him. Wonder what sets him apart from other school shooters. All right, New York Post starts off with the Texas student who allegedly opened fire at his high school, injuring 4 people, including a teacher, was sprung from jail on Thursday afternoon as his attorney, who joined him, insisted the case wasn't a standard issue school shooting. Yes, this was a special school shooting, not a standard issue one. Timothy George Simpkins, 18, who attends Timber View High School in Arlington, will report to home confinement after he posted $75,000 bail by Tarrant County Jail, news station WFAA reported. Simpkin, who was wearing a blue baseball cap and graphic t-shirt, did not answer questions from reporters as he was escorted from the jailhouse by two relatives into the back seat of a white Mercedes sedan. As part of the conditions of his release, he will also have to submit to drug and alcohol testing and wear a GPS monitoring device. There we go. Civil rights attorney Kim T. Cole, who spoke on behalf of the family, blasted reporters outside of the jail for portraying the dangerous incident as a, quote, standard issue school shooting. Because this was a special school shooting, because it was a black guy. There are numerous school shootings that have occurred across the country, which are tragic. All school shootings are tragic, Cole said. However, what do you mean, however? School shootings are tragic, however? Okay. However, in this situation, this was not someone who was just out to go and shoot at a school. Sorry. However, in this situation, this was not someone who was just out to go and shoot a school and had made up their mind and said, hey, I'm upset and I'm going to just shoot anyone I see. Quote, this was not the situation here, so I request the media correct their narrative with regard to what happened and that you all respect the family's privacy, she continued. So, this is a special school shooting. He was more selective in who he was shooting at, because school shooters just shoot. They all shoot indiscriminately, you see. None of them have ever been upset at specific people and targeted them with a hit list. So because he had a hit list of specific people and wasn't just shooting randomly, that makes it okay, you see. It's not your typical school shooting. A family spokeswoman has claimed that he acted out of self-defense after being robbed and targeted by bullies. Oh no. We'll talk about that here in a second. Let's see here. So, footage on social media allegedly shows Simpkins getting into an altercation during class with another student that escalated to gunfire on Wednesday. This was Wednesday of, I think 2 weeks ago. I think it was like the 6th. The fight was broken up by two students. Was broken up and the two students calmed down. But then, after the fight was over, Simpkins pulled out a firearm from his orange backpack and fired several shots that struck 3 people, according to an arrest warrant on Thursday. Calvin Petiti, a 25-year-old English teacher who jumped in to break up the fight, was shot in the back, suffering broken ribs and a collapsed lung, according to police and his family. The other victims were identified as Zacharias Selby, Alfamini. Wow, these are some heckin' names here. You guys can just read these here. According to a bond document obtained by Dallas News, police have said a 15-year-old boy was in critical condition while a teenage girl was grazed by a bullet and had been discharged from the hospital. The fourth victim, a pregnant woman, was injured in the fall during the shooting but received medical care on the scene, police said. Simpkins was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So, we'll scroll back up here just real quick. So his spokesperson is saying, well, this isn't a standard issue school shooting. You see, he was being bullied. It was self-defense, et cetera, et cetera. But we saw the story was he was in a fight with somebody, which I didn't pull up the video because I think it's been scrubbed mostly. But if you've seen the video of this or go look it up on your own, the video is mostly of this black kid beating the absolute hell out of some other kid. And it doesn't really look like it's two-sided. Not to mention he's an 18-year-old, so him hitting somebody at a high school likely to be more than your typical assault, because it'd probably be an adult hitting a child, even though they're both close in age. That's just how those things work. But this says that, let's scroll down here. The fight was broken up and the two students had calmed down. So this wasn't self-defense because it was after the incident. It was after the fight had been broken up. So there was no longer any active threat to either student because the fight had been broken up. But then afterwards, Simpkins pulled out a firearm from his orange backpack and fired several shots that struck 3 people. So this sounds more like a case of revenge, where after the fight is over, because it's not self-defense if the fight's over, right? If nobody's coming after you, it's not self-defense. What it's called is after an incident, and you go and try and shoot somebody who wronged you earlier, that's called revenge. So this was a revenge shooting, not a self-defense shooting. Let's see here. Let's see here. So New York Post had not too bad coverage of this, but they didn't give us real good specifics on who got shot. So let's oddly Outkick for some reason actually had I don't know why. They had some pretty good, a little bit better, more specifics on who got shot and what. So they say, this is from Outkick, on Wednesday, Timothy Simpkins, 18, shot Zachariah Selby, 15, 4 times. So that's a lot of times to shoot somebody when you're not in an active self-defense incident with them. So Timothy shot Selby 4 times with a .45 caliber handgun at Timberland High School in Arlington, Texas. Though Selby still fights for his life in an induced coma, Arlington police have released Simpkins from custody on Thursday after he posted $75,000 bail. Simpkins shot Selby in his arm, leg, chest, and stomach. He also wounded a school teacher who tried to break up their fight, and another bullet grazed another student. Following a short manhunt, Simpkins turned himself in. So this kid, shoots 4 into Selby. Number 5 went into the teacher, and number 6 went into the grazed this other girl, I guess. So I don't know what exactly he had, but a .45 handgun. If I had to guess, it was a revolver. Not a good way to know for sure, but I would guess that it was a revolver, probably a 6-shooter. So again, you got 4 in Selby, 1 in the teacher, and 1 that grazed the girl. So there's your 6 shots. So he emptied a whole revolver into the school, and then he ran off. So this was after the fight. So this was a revenge shooting. To say that he was he self-defensing against the teacher? Was he self-defensing against this girl that he shot too that wasn't involved in the previous fight? I would say not. Now, if it had been a self-defense shooting, I would have no complaints about how many times you've decided to shoot your assailant. But this was not. This was clearly not a self-defense shooting because it had already happened, already occurred. Some of the reasonings why he decided to shoot that day from his prosecutor and from his family, which is kind of funny that they're not doing a real great job of, I guess, justifying it. They tried to justify it by saying that because Timothy's family was wealthy, a lot of kids made fun of him, and that was difficult for him to deal with. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sure it was. So, but this is what happens. So, you get a black school shooter. He's $75,000 bail, rich kid. So $75,000 might sound like a lot, but for bail, for somebody who shot 3 people in cold blood, that is very low, especially for a wealthy family. So part of the family's defense is, oh, well, people are just jealous of us because we're rich, and that's why they were bullying him. If you've got somebody who's rich, posting $75,000 bail is not really that big of a deal. For comparisons, you've got some of the January 6th protestees, not even people who were confirmed rioting. So there was 2 groups of people on January 6th. Some of them were rioters. Some of them were just there at the rally. And some of the ones that were just at the rally, they had $1 million bails, and they're still in jail. And then you've got this kid who goes and shoots up a high school, hits 4 people, or 3 people. Yeah, hits 3 people, shoots 6 shots, and then runs off because he's black and because maybe they bullied him. all of a sudden it's okay. All of a sudden it's okay. So I guess the next time a white student that's being bullied decides to pop a few off in class, I guess that's going to be okay too. The media is just going to treat that the same too. And what's interesting is I knew that this was going to happen because I heard about this story last week when it happened. I think I heard about it on Thursday and Friday, and then this was from 2 weeks ago. Then all this week, there was nothing to be heard about it. After the weekend, it just disappeared. There was nothing to be heard about it. You guys, if you heard about this 2 weeks ago, maybe I'm jogging your memory, but I can almost guarantee none of you have heard about this story this week because the media went full blackout on it. Nobody's been talking about it. Nobody's been writing articles about the more recent updates. You got some of the conservative commentators are, but nothing from mainstream media. Total media blackout. This is not even close to like the least bad school shooting we've had this year. All school shootings are a tragedy, obviously. But there's certain school shootings that are more effective than others. And this was a rather effective one. It's definitely in the top half of the ones this year. And yet the media wants nothing to do with it because I guess it was, well, you guys know why. It's because he's black. And as we talked about 2 weeks ago, last time we did the show, the last story I did 2 weeks ago, talking about hoax hate crimes and how hoax hate crimes are kind of the new way that black people are able to do black on black terrorism. The newest way for black people to terrorize their own community. Now this Timothy guy, he hasn't quite caught on to the new wave of how to terrorize the black community. He's just, more into just shooting. And so it's okay. It's okay when he does it because this is the Democrat Coliseum. This is the Democrat Coliseum where the Democrats just really want to create this situation, that the left really wants to create the situation where people that are terrorizing the common folk, that are killing each other, that are shooting at each other, that are criminally trespassing, burning people's stuff down, killing their kids. The Democrats want more of that. They love watching that. They love seeing that. That is why you've got all of these pushes for leniency on criminals, especially minority criminals, allowing them to get out of jail early, like this kid did, allowing them to, if they are shooting or killing or murdering or raping, giving them more leniency. And in the case of Jacob Blake, who was raping his ex-girlfriend, and he was shot by the police right after when he was trying to escape from them after he was done raping his ex-girlfriend and stealing her kids. The police shot him, and all of a sudden he's been, lionized as this hero. We have this black kid who, because, I guess, he got bullied. I don't know. He shoots off people and they're saying, well, this isn't your typical school shooting. This one's justified. So it's this continuous effort to justify minority crime just to keep everybody, I guess the Democrats, entertained and to keep us on the ground under the anarcho-tyranny, to keep us perpetually in fear and perpetually in danger, because they don't want to enforce any kind of protective law, because that would actually keep you from harm. They're not really interested in that. They just want to oppress you and make sure that you have to do all the things that they say, all the regulations, but they don't want to actually enforce any of the laws that might, keep you alive or might keep your children alive or, keep your children from getting shot or keep your children from getting raped. They don't want to enforce any of that stuff, but they definitely want to enforce that you have to accept that, possible sexual predators are going to be in bathrooms with your daughters. You have to accept that because that's the tyranny part. But if one of those predators rapes your daughter, well, the state's not really going to do anything about it, are they? Because that's the anarcho part. If you think maybe a school shooter, regardless of their gender or race, that they should be prosecuted because that's the right thing to do because you want your children to be safe. Depending on the race of the person, maybe they won't. Maybe they won't, because that's the anarcho part of it. You have to just deal with that. Because it's not about protecting you. It's not about protecting your children. It's about you submitting. It's about you submitting to the state. That's all that matters. All right. Now we have one last story under the kind of anarcho-tyranny umbrella here. So let me pull it up. We had an insurrection this week. Oh my goodness. And how do I know it's an insurrection? Well, because we have a new definition of insurrection. It's just any kind of let's see here. It's just any kind of attack on any kind of federal building, unless it's Antifa, right? But we had a new group of people deciding to perform an insurrection this week. Let's read about it from The Hill. So, protesters were arrested after, quote, sit-in at the Interior Department. Now, I'll admit, I don't quite remember what the Interior Department does. I knew I forgot to look that up before the show. It is my understanding that the Interior Department deals with like land management. Now, I know we have a Bureau of Land Management, but that doesn't mean that we don't have other departments that deal with that sort of stuff, because it's bureaucracy. You have to have overlap, because if there's not overlap of the bureaucratic agencies, well, perhaps they'll miss something, and perhaps you'll have some freedom that isn't being infringed upon. So we have a lot of departments that kind of do the same thing. Department of the Interior, along with the Bureau of Land Management, I think that they have a lot of overlap in there. But either way, the Department of the Interior this week was victim of a sit-in by protesters. Let's read what The Hill has to say about it. So, dozens of protesters were arrested after they waged a sit-in at the Interior Department on Thursday to protest fossil fuel projects. Somebody in chat who pointed out that we have approximately 8 federal agencies which have some kind of dealings with federal lands. So, not just overlap, but overlap. Overlap. There we go. Let's see here. So, the group, People vs. Fossil Fuels, which organized a 5-day protest event aimed at pressing President Biden to declare climate change an emergency and compel him to stop approving fossil fuel projects, reported on Thursday that 55 people had been arrested during a sit-in. Now, this is funny. So their two demands are for Joe. They demand that Joe declare climate change an emergency, and they demand that Joe Biden stop approving fossil fuel projects. I have no idea what fossil fuel projects Joe Biden has been approving. I'm really curious if they've got a list, because it was my understanding that demand had already been met. We had starting with the Keystone Pipeline, that was canceled. That was just the day one kickoff. You might remember that there was 10,000 jobs immediately lost because of that, followed by 40,000 derivative jobs that were lost because Joe Biden immediately day one canceled the Keystone Pipeline. But we also had, along with that, Joe stopped. He basically canceled federal. I forget what it's called, but there's a process where federal lands are opened up for oil exploration and drilling, and Joe basically rescinded all of those permits. Yeah, permits. He basically rescinded all those permits and stopped processing new permits. So, to the best of his ability, everything that he has control over, Joe has stopped dead in its tracks fossil fuel projects. So I don't know what exactly they're talking about that they want him to stop approving fossil fuel projects, because it appears that he has put a complete dead stop on fossil fuel projects. So I don't know exactly what they think's happening, but they're environmentalists, so probably not thinking with a full stack there. Let's see here. The Hill continues. The group alleged that police had, quote, acted aggressively with water protectors. I don't know what a water protector is. Oh, okay. I'm understanding okay. The group alleged that the police had acted aggressively with the water protectors. So the water protectors, I think, is a group of people. I think that they're calling themselves we're the defenders of water. Maybe they're one of the avatars or something. I don't know. So the water protectors, I believe that is a proper noun for the group of people here. Not that the police were using water protectors to do something to people. That makes more sense. Okay. So the group alleged that police had, quote, acted aggressively with the water protectors and had used stun guns on at least 2 people. Oh, man, using stun guns on water avatars? That probably ended badly. They alleged that others had been hit with batons. Footage and photos circulated online of people being arrested inside the building. And here's just one such photo. Let's see here. We get I don't know who this Jennifer. We'll just look at the picture. I don't really care what she has to say. Alrighty. Here's another one. Oh yeah, she looks like she's protecting a lot of water there. Looks like she's protecting a lot of Coke too. Yeah, I don't know. Does lead beat water? Or the what do you think? What do we think police batons are made out of? Fiberglass? Does fiberglass beat water? I'm guessing it does. All right. Let's see here. So the indigenous leader said, quote, "For the land, for our waters, for our future. We must fight now so our young can thrive." Because you know how you make young kids thrive for the next generation is you completely destroy the energy economy. So we have to throw them back to pre-industrial age. That's definitely how your kids for the next generation will thrive, is if you throw the economy back to pre-industrial era. Go for it. So they said, "For the land, for the waters, for our future, we must fight now so our young can thrive. You can arrest us, tear gas us, poison us, but there will always be more hearts to continue the song until we are all free," indigenous leaders who led the sit-in said in a statement. So I guess like, I don't know, what is this, Captain Planet? So like, are these the guys who had the heart ring? Well, I guess we had the water guy, and now we got the heart guy. I don't know where the other elements are. Maybe they just weren't interested. But yeah, we got water and heart. They were rioting at the Department of the Interior this week. All right. So in a statement following the event, Interior Department spokesperson Melissa Schwartz said that, quote, "multiple injuries were sustained by security personnel and one officer had to be transported to a nearby hospital." Oh no. Multiple injuries sustained by security personnel and one officer was transported to the hospital. How did that happen? How on earth did security and police get injured badly enough to go to the hospital during this quote-unquote sit-in? Is it possibly because the water avatars the Water Nation was doing a little bit more than sitting? Were they maybe fighting? Were they maybe insurrecting in a government building in D.C.? I don't know. Let's keep reading and find out. Let's see here. She, being the Interior Department spokesperson, Melissa Schwartz, she said Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, who is Native American, had been traveling and was not in Washington, D.C. during the event. Quote, "Interior Department leadership believes strongly in respecting and upholding the right to free speech and peaceful protest. Centering the voices of lawful protesters is and will continue to be an important foundation of our democracy," Schwartz said. "It is also our obligation to keep everyone safe. We will continue to do everything we can to de-escalate the situation while honoring First Amendment rights," because it is, according to Schwartz, it's peaceful and your First Amendment right to, what was it? How did they put it? Send one officer to a nearby hospital and multiple injuries being sustained by other security personnel. Very peaceful. We have a tweet from Melissa Schwartz, who's the spokesperson for the Interior Department. Statement from the Interior Department. Early this afternoon, a group of protesters entered the Stuart Lee Udall main interior building. Federal Protective Service personnel responded to the area to mitigate the situation. Federal Protective Services, FPS, did not indicate how many people had been arrested, but noted in a statement that several other law enforcement agencies had assisted them in efforts to, quote, "detain prosecute, or take action against anyone who caused harm and attempted to disrupt the business of federal government yesterday. Let's see here. Federal Protective Services is committed to the safety of demonstrators participating in lawful protests and fully supports the peaceful expression of all peoples. FPS will continue to pursue our mission of ensuring the safety and security of federal employees and facilities consistent with the law, the FPS said in a statement. So you've got the Federal Protective Services saying, we're just here to watch people be peaceful and protect their rights. You've got the spokesperson for the Department of the Interior saying, it's peaceful protesters. You've got her saying peaceful protesters again. And then you've got the, how'd they put it? Where'd it go? There we go. Again, multiple injuries were sustained by security personnel, and one officer has been transported to a nearby hospital. Let's watch a few video, or at least one video from this incident, because I'm kind of thinking that maybe they're leaving a few things out of this. It seems like they're almost getting to it, but it seems like they're leaving a few things out. So this is a video of the quote unquote water people breaching the building of the Department of the Interior here. Let's watch. Yeah, they're climbing on the doors, pulling on them. Then I want you to listen here in a few seconds here. She's going to talk about it, and they're going to lead a charge into the building. I believe she just stole one of the security officers' hats. Let's go, keep pushing, she says. Yeah, so, that kind of looks really similar. If you had just told me that this was footage from January 6th, I probably would believe you, because it's just, showing a nondescript government building, and there's people outside screaming and shouting, and they're trying to pull the doors open. They're stealing hats from security officers. Seems to be a ruckus, and then they've entered the building, as we saw from other pictures here. They at some point entered the building after not being invited in, and then were arrested, and several officers went to the hospital. That seems to be very similar to January 6th. Now, we've said on the show multiple times that what happened on January 6th wasn't a good thing. Was it the worst thing ever? Absolutely not. It was not the worst thing ever. Was it a good thing? No, it wasn't a good thing either. It can exist on a spectrum of bad things, but not be the worst thing, right? So I think that this situation is very similar, where it's not the worst thing that ever happened. Is it as bad as January 6th? I don't think there was as many people there, but it seems to be a nearly identical event, just slightly smaller, where you have people who are quote-unquote protesting, and then they've breached a government building, had altercations with Capitol Police, and injured several of them, and then were arrested. Now, the where it differs from January 6th is the response to it. Again, as we just read through, you had Federal Protective Services and spokespeople for the Department of the Interior all saying, oh, you know what, it was fine, it was peaceful protest, it's their First Amendment right, yada, yada, yada. And you can be sure that none of these people are going to be prosecuted. They're not going to be held in D.C. prison for 9 months without any charges or any right to a speedy trial, as the January 6th protesters and rioters have been. I don't think that Nancy is going to be rushing to have a investigative committee in Congress start trying to figure out what happened here. Nope. It's going to be treated completely differently, and that's part of, again, the anarcho-tyranny. The anarchy part is that, well, these are the people that were on the side of the Biden administration, in theory. They weren't bad old Trump supporters, so they can kind of do whatever they want. They are going to be allowed to continue doing whatever they want. However, if you're a Trump supporter and you do the same thing, well, that's where you get the tyranny at. We're going to throw the full force of the law at you and keep you in jail for however long we feel like it. And that's the tyranny part of it. So it basically, under anarcho-tyranny, it really depends on who you vote for whether or not you are allowed to do what you want to do. If you're a liberal, you can, or you're part of one of the liberal protected classes, like black, you can shoot up a school and get out of jail. You can break into a government building, get out of jail. You can rape somebody's daughter. No consequences. They'll even send you to a new school to hunt down a new target. If, however, you are a blue collar parent who has a problem with this new trans agenda, well, that's you're domestic terror. You're now the face of domestic terrorism. If you are anybody but a black person shooting anything at a school, well, you're also a domestic terrorist. You're probably a white nationalist, probably representative of all white people, and you're really the representative of the problem of the country at large. If you are a Trump supporter and you want to have a rally in D.C. and you happen to find yourself in a federal building that you're not supposed to be in, it's not going to be a regular trespassing charge. It's going to be, in jail until the end of time in D.C. and without any charges, and just nobody will see you again. So again, it's dependent on which party you're supporting, which kind of interest groups you're a part of, which ideologies you're espoused to. It really is dependent on that, and depending on if you're on the good side or the bad side, based off what the tyrannical establishment says, you're either going to be allowed to do that and terrorize the other group, or you're going to be forced to accept the terrorization from the other group. So again, if you're a blue collar father who doesn't want your daughter raped, well, the tyranny is that you have to allow yourself to be terrorized by the in group. If you're the in group, well, the state is going to do everything it can to not prosecute you, to make sure that you can go out and continue to rape as much as you want. And that's anarcho-tyranny for you. Alrighty. So, your next story here. Sorry, I bumped my mic rather hard. Sure that was loud for you guys. My apologies. Alrighty. Our next story is the Truman Show presidency. So, it has been known for some time that Joe Biden often appears on a fake White House set. That is not to say that the set is fake. It's a real set. It's a real TV set. It exists in reality. But what I mean is that it's a TV soundstage set that was constructed to look as though it was in the White House, when realistically it's not in the White House. It's in a completely different building. The president appearing on camera at a location other than the White House is not particularly strange, but trying to make it look like it's the White House, that's a little suspect. That's a little dishonest, perhaps. The name The Truman Show presidency comes from a tweet from Jack Posobiec, who's retweeting a story that we're about to cover here, and I thought it was a relatively apt description. If you guys have ever seen the movie The Truman Show, if you haven't seen the movie The Truman Show, it's on Netflix. Really great movie. Highly recommend watching it. And I don't want to spoil the I guess I'm spoiling it by giving it away here in the story here, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it. If you have seen it, you already know you already know why this is The Truman Show presidency, so no need to give away the ending. All right. So in the story goes, so in an appearance from this mock-up of the White House last week, Joe Biden appeared in front of a window which depicted the White House rose garden in full bloom. Now, it's October in D.C., which is it's starting to get a little chilly. Not quite snow yet, but it's not as hot as it was in the middle of summer. Now, some users on social media and certain political commentators are suggesting that this was strange because the roses in the rose garden should not be in full bloom in October. And while that makes sense to me, I agree that maybe towards the fall that roses aren't in full bloom. Direwolf Media was unable to source any current images of the rose garden to confirm that they were not in fact in full bloom. And I don't actually know how roses work, so I can't confirm either that they are not supposed to be in bloom in October. So while that is a thing that people were suggesting, I cannot confirm or deny that roses do or do not bloom in October because I'm not a rose guy. But regardless of when roses bloom, the key takeaway is that the window behind Biden is fake. That's kind of the key thing. It doesn't matter if the roses are supposed to be in bloom or not. The key thing is that there were no roses outside the window because it was a fake window. It was a projection of something that wasn't actually in the window. In an article last month, Breitbart compiled several images from these virtual reality windows. Let's take a look. Let's see here. The reason why I'm reading this article from Breitbart, and again, Breitbart I would consider to be more of a right-biased website, but this article is mostly just a picture collage, which is why I'm comfortable citing it here today. Let's see here. So Breitbart says, fake news, White House creates illusionary White House set for Joe Biden events. So we have a picture here. You can see it's obviously a TV soundstage with the lights, and the walls don't go to the ceiling because they're not really, they're not really structural walls. They're just there to create the set. Let's see here. So the White House has developed a special video set for President Joe Biden events that are broadcast online or include video conferencing. As Joe Biden sat down in a chair and rolled up his sleeve to get his vaccine booster shot on Monday, the window behind him showed a beautiful view of the Rose Garden. That's nice. But the president was not at the White House at all. It was all a carefully crafted illusion. Instead, he was on the new set in a South Court auditorium in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building across the street from the actual White House. The window view of the Rose Garden appears to be a digital screen depicting what the view could theoretically be if you looked out of the White House windows. Here you can see Joe again with these virtual windows behind him. Other events showed screens depicting different outdoor views. During a Biden event on global warming, one of the windows showed artificial views of solar panels, which those are not outside the White House. Let's see here. Let's see here. So Biden's staff now holds more White House events in the artificial set depicting the White House, especially if they include live video conferencing calls. Behind the scenes, photos of the set show that it includes a wide array of lighting, digital equipment, and optics to make the president look as good as possible on video and to make it look like he is speaking to the world from the White House. You can see more pictures here. The photos of the set sparked online chatter about the president's media strategy, recalling his specially constructed video set in the basement of his Delaware home in the 2020 presidential campaign. It remains unclear why White House staff believe it is easier to create a fake White House set across the street instead of broadcasting from the actual White House building. The White House did not respond to request for comment about the video set from Breitbart News. So there's been a few suggestions here, which give me just a second here. There's been a few suggestions as to why they're using a White House set. One of them being that it's easier for Joe to read off the teleprompter in a set that was constructed for him to do that. And a lot of people have pointed out that that doesn't necessarily make sense because there's been plenty of incidents where a teleprompter, even though it's an unwieldy machine, can be placed inside the Oval Office or in other rooms in the White House. It's not a particularly unique thing. While it might be difficult, it's not nearly as difficult as constructing an entire fake White House. Is it the biggest deal in the world that he's broadcasting from a location that's not in the White House, and that he's surrounded by virtual windows? No, it's not. I don't think it's really the biggest deal. I know some of the other conspiracy theories are that, like, oh, this is proof that Joe's not really president. I don't know about that. Maybe, but I don't know. I don't think I can confirm or deny that one. Similar to the rose garden thing about whether or not roses are in bloom. I really don't know if roses are supposed to be in bloom right now. I know a lot of people on social media said that they're not supposed to be in bloom. I guess I'll take their word for it, but can't confirm or deny that. I think it's compelling that there's plenty of images of teleprompters in the Oval Office from previous administrations that, there's really no reason to construct another soundstage just so that Joe Biden can read off of teleprompters continuously. Though that does make sense. Joe Biden is notoriously awful when he doesn't have a script to read off of. So maybe that. But really, I don't know. I think it's, and we're going to get into another story that's got in the same kind of vein here. I really think it's just a compulsion to lie about stuff. I don't think that, Joe Biden using virtual windows on a virtual soundstage, depicting the White House when they have a perfectly fine real White House to use. I don't think that on its own really says much, but it does highlight a pattern of activity from the Biden White House, which, to continue on with that, brings us to Kamala Harris. Now you might be, let's see here. So, which brings us to Kamala Harris, who is already, Kamala is already seen as extraordinarily unlikable and inauthentic. And given that there's a very good chance that she is going to become president at some point in the next 3 years, not a joke, people, not a joke. She and the Dems are really desperate to change that perception of her being unlikable and inauthentic. And the way that they've decided to try and go about doing that, they've tried a few different things. Trying to hide her and just have her not do any kind of public speaking events didn't seem to work. That didn't really, though I did enjoy the reprieve from Kamala's voice for the months over the summer that we didn't have her. Her coming back, I don't think it really did anything to change her perception. So they're trying to bring Kamala back into the limelight, so to speak. And this is their most recent attempt at making Kamala more likable and appear to be more authentic. I'll let you guys decide after we watch this video whether or not they've accomplished making her appear more authentic.
I just love the idea of exploring the unknown. And then there's other things that we just haven't figured out or discovered yet. To think about so much that's out there that we still have to learn. Like, I love that. I love that. And so I'm very excited about the Space Council. We're going to learn so much as we increasingly, I think, are curious and interested in the potential for the discoveries and the work we can do in space. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about. But the other, you guys are going to see. You're gonna literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes. Oh my goodness. With your own eyes, I'm telling you, it is gonna be unbelievable. I just love the idea.
I agree with the comment on here is, what the hell did I just watch? And you might be thinking, Fox, there's no way that you have more of Kamala clearly high as a kite talking about craters on the moon. And I say to you, yes, of course I've got more. Yes, of course I do. It
gives us a sense of the magnitude of it all. Earth is kind of small. Yeah. Right? The Earth is like a speck. Yeah. Compared to the sun. We have designed, look at the design of this thing. And the people, and the smart people, and the scientists, and the engineers came up with the idea that if you build something that looks like that, you can see the sun. Yeah. And you can see the moon, right? Well, wait till you guys see the moon. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is about those craters on the moon. Always dream with ambition. Have big dreams. You'll remember that?
Yes.
All right.
She's even got the giggles talking about the craters on the moon. She's just absolutely obsessed with it. Direwolf Media cannot confirm or deny whether or not Kamala Harris ingested a large amount of THC, possibly inside of a brownie, before filming this. But, come on. You guys, if you haven't partaken in it yourself, you've at least seen somebody who has. And, when they do partake in a large amount of THC, they do seem to have a large fascination with space getting the giggles, talking about big things and getting excited about stuff that seems pretty mundane and common. So, again, Direwolf Media unable to confirm or deny that Kamala ingested a large amount of THC prior to filming this, but there is no evidence that she did not consume a rather large pat brownie before this. And so while it remains unconfirmed that Kamala wake and baked before filming this, what we do know is that these clips came from the very first episode of a new YouTube original series called Get Curious with Vice President Kamala, which, if you were ever curious what it would be like to get so high that you could listen to music from 7 years in the future and then look at the sun through a telescope, well, I suppose that this series would probably satisfy that curiosity for you. Now, this YouTube original series, is supposedly Vice President Kamala interacting with STEM students from across the country to encourage other American students to take up an interest in science, technology, engineering, and math. The only problem? The kids in this video were not real STEM students. They weren't real. I don't mean that they weren't real children. They certainly were real juvenile human beings, probably. But what I mean is that they weren't actually STEM students. They weren't chosen from around the country to visit the vice president because they had an interest in science, technology, math, and engineering. No, these were child actors selected by a talent agency. They were cast. They had a casting call, and a talent agency selected them because they had the best personality for the role they were going to be playing with Kamala Harris here. So, probably real human children, not real STEM students. They are child actors. Not only were these child actors, these were the talent agency from that provided these child actors was based out of Canada. Kamala couldn't even use an American talent agency. She had to source them from Canada to find her fake children. Now, the talent agency that this has been... now, what's funny is that this video clip came out before anybody knew that these were child actors. That they weren't genuine STEM students. And right off the bat, everybody... you guys saw it. This is cringy as all hell. Kamala... if she was hoping that this would make her come off as more likable or more authentic, fail on every account there. So clearly fake, and if not fake, then she's obviously high as hell. But after the internet kind of ripped apart these clips, then it was discovered in middle of this week that these kids, again, they came from a talent agency. And I got a little blurb about this talent agency by going to their website. Their website is, or this talent agency is called Sinking Ship, which is a little bit funny, given our next story that we're going to be covering here in a little bit is the shipping crisis that Joe Biden has created, where there's a lot of ships offshore unable to unload their cargo. And so it's a little weird that while Joe is collapsing the shipping industry, Kamala Harris has hired the Toronto-based sinking ship company to provide her fake children. Let's see here. So from Sinking Ship's about page, here we can read what they do. So named as the #1 kids entertainment production company on Kids Screen Hot 50 list in 2020, Sinking Ship Entertainment is a globally renowned and industry-leading production, keep that in mind, production, distribution, VFX, and interactive studio specializing in children's and family content. Since its founding in 2004, Sinking Ship has won 24 Daytime Emmy Awards, including series wins for Ghost Riders, Dino Dan, Trek Adventures, Odd Squad, and Giver, and was named the most innovative producer at the 2021 Banff World Media Festival. With a global reputation for quality, groundbreaking original series, and companion interactive experiences, Sinking Ship has produced more than 17 series and distributed more than 200 countries across the world. Upcoming projects include a third season of the worldwide success Odd Squad, Builder Brothers Dream Factory, in partnership with Scott Brothers Entertainment, and the highly anticipated series Jane, co-produced with the Jane Goodall Institute. So I want to highlight here that they are not just a talent agency, they are a TV production company that specializes in children's shows. So this, as I said, these clips from Kamala, these came from a YouTube originals series, a new YouTube original series. And it's using child actors. And it's using this production company called Sinking Ship. So this is a produced TV show using actors and starring Kamala Harris. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. None of this is genuine. This is the exact opposite of authentic. And it's very strange. It doesn't sound like it's that crazy right off the bat. It's like, okay, well, they wanted to have a, I guess some kind of like PSA, kind of like a PBS thing maybe. But I want you guys to think about this. So they have a real White House for Joe Biden to use. Why do they choose to use the fake one? Surely there are real STEM kids around the country that would love to visit the Naval Observatory and might even be okay with interacting with Kamala Harris. So provided that, she was restrained from eating them or that Joe Biden wasn't going to sniff them. So there's a real White House that Joe can use, but he chooses to use a fake one. There's real STEM kids around the country that would love the opportunity to go to the Naval Observatory, and yet they use fake ones. Why? And I think it's compulsive lying. The Democrats, the left, the elites, these just absolutely neurotic elites are such compulsive liars that even when it is the easiest thing in the world to just be authentic, to just tell the truth, to just do something in a place that you're supposed to be in, they are just compelled, something deep in the fiber of their being, to create a fiction when no fiction is necessary. There's no reason to make a fake White House. We have a White House. It's huge. There's plenty of room in there to do all kinds of stuff. Yet they chose to recreate a fake one just because they're so compelled to be inauthentic. Kamala could have used real children, real STEM kids. Yet she chose to create this production that was, purely fabricated production and pretend like these child actors were real STEM students. And the other flip side of that is that maybe for Kamala, maybe they don't trust her with real kids, which that could actually be a genuine thing. And I don't, we've seen how she is. Certainly an authentic child might actually ask her real questions, which that would be just a disaster. So that's why they had to get scripted child actors to do it that knew how to read off a script, knew how to pretend to interact with people in an inauthentic way. And it's interesting. And it's what's also kind of funny about that is that even scripted, that exchange Kamala had with them, and that's part of a full 11-minute video on YouTube. It's on NASA's homepage. If you go to the NASA channel on YouTube, they've got this series linked on there. This was the first episode of what I think is going to be a 9 or 10 episode series, which is crazy in its own right. I'll get back to that. But this was all scripted. This was all scripted by a production company. It had a company that specializes in producing TV shows, and even scripted. Man, Kamala came off as cringy. Man, she came off as inauthentic. I mean, she had kids paid to act authentically with her. And I think the kids did great. They seem to be decent actors. I mean, certainly they, to not run in terror when you see Kamala laugh like that, that does take a lot of acting ability. But Kamala, man, even in the most, I guess, the most artificial environment possible, they cannot get Kamala to appear more likable or to appear more authentic. I also want to point out, and a more problematic than Joe having a fake White House is this TV show that Kamala's got. So, as I said, these clips were from a new YouTube original series. What does that mean? That YouTube original series are TV shows. Cobra Kai was one of the first YouTube original series. Cobra Kai is a fictionalized TV show. So YouTube originals are like essentially like saying it's a TV show on any other network. It's just the network happens to be YouTube. Why is the sitting vice president, starring in a TV show? That's really concerning to me. I think that sets a bad precedent. We've got some other politicians, namely Ted Cruz, who I've criticized hundreds of times on the show over the last 2 years for it. Who has a recurring permanent seat on a Daily Wire podcast called The Verdict. And I think it is one of the most corrupt and unethical things that a politician could do, and extremely unethical for the Daily Wire to have done, is to have a sitting U.S. senator on their payroll for a podcast in a permanent position. Now, if a podcast wants to have a guest interview with a politician, that's more than okay. If a politician wants to come on for an interview as in a guest role, more than okay. But for Daily Wire to have a permanent position and a permanent show, and Ted Cruz to be a permanent member, Daily Wire is it's not a nonprofit. It's a for-profit company. And for Ted Cruz to be sitting, have essentially a job, part-time or not, for a for-profit company while also being a sitting U.S. senator is extraordinarily corrupt. Extraordinarily. And I've called that out multiple times on this show. I think that absolutely pales in comparison to having a full TV show. I mean, at least in Ted Cruz's capacity as a employee of a private company while being a public office holder, at least he's having a conversation that appears to be authentic. He's not doing something that's pure fiction. Kamala, on the other hand, here, she has a full TV show on a network that's fictionalized using paid child actors and a TV production company writing the script for her. That's crazy. And what's also crazy is somebody's at my front door. Might be a cat though. Sometimes I get cat. Oh no, it's the Amazon guy. That's all right. We'll let him suffer out there. So Kamala having a TV show. This is kind of wild. So I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before. Not at this level. I think Ted Cruz kind of broke the seal on it. Bad for him. But the sitting vice president starring in a fictionalized TV show, that should cause some trouble for a lot of us. And I don't think anybody's really picking up on it in the way that I've just explained it. Let's see here. So one of the reasons why this is problematic is because if the White House and Kamala and Biden are using if they're scripting using actors, they're creating fake sets of basic things. Why make a set for the White House when you have a White House? Why have child actors of STEM students when they're real STEM students all over the country? If they are just on these very basic, easy things to be easily to use the real thing, they're bending over backwards to use a fake version of it. Why should we believe any of the other things that they're doing are real? And I don't want to try and get too conspiratorial here, but just walk down the trail here for a second, because I don't think that if I want to skip ahead here. So nowhere in the video that we were just played, and I watched the whole thing. Unfortunately, the full video is like 12 minutes long, and it's exactly like what you guys saw for the 40 seconds that we played. It's like that for 12 minutes, and it's really hard to get through. Really hard to get through, guys. But I watched the whole thing, and nowhere in it does the video have any kind of disclaimer that says, "Hey, these are paid child actors, or these are paid actors." You'll often see that in advertisements for medicines. Adelupus sent an ice cream, and I thank you very much. We will feed that to Joe Biden after the show. You'll see this in pharmaceutical commercials where it says at the bottom, there's a disclaimer that says these are paid actors. And that's very important for product placement. And I believe that's for a lot of other, I think it's for all advertisements maybe, where it has to specify that these are paid actors. So that's important because you want to make sure that like something important like that you know whether or not these are real people saying real things or whether or not they're being paid to say those things. And so nowhere in Kamala's video where, again, this is supposed to be, it was found out that it was a production company. It was found out that these were child actors. It didn't say in the video that they were child actors. This was supposed to look like it was real and authentic. It was supposed to look like these were real STEM students, that these weren't child actors, that this was a real interaction, not that it was a produced event by a company that specializes in producing fictional TV shows. Nowhere on this video did it say these were child actors and that this interaction was inauthentic. Kamala and the White House want you to believe, though, that she was talking to real, genuine kids, not paid actors. And so my question is this the first time that they've done something like that? Who paid for this production company to create a fictional TV show for Kamala? 5 child actors aren't cheap. And why use a Canadian agency? And you know, if you're gonna create a fictional TV show for Kamala to star in, very similar to the show Veep, right? Like, what's the difference between this and Veep? They're both about a vice president, and they're both fictional TV shows. I'm not seeing much of a difference there. But if you're gonna go through the effort of hiring children to interact with Kamala Harris, why not use an American talent agency? Why do you have to go Canadian? That's kind of ridiculous. We got Jojo Starbuck gave us a follow. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. So my question again is this the first time they've done something like this, where they have broadcast an event that is supposedly genuine interaction between the people that they say it is? You know, in this case, they were trying to imply that this was a genuine interaction between Kamala and STEM students, but it wasn't. It was paid actors. So is this the first time they've done something like this? Again, 5 child actors isn't cheap, so who paid for this? This isn't well known, but the White House does have a budget for things. There's not an infinite money supply for the White House to do things with, which is also another question of where did Joe Biden get the money to create a White House soundstage. This came to light very much during the Clinton presidency, because Hillary had all these, when Bill Clinton was president, Hillary had all these events that she wanted to have at the White House with different interest groups. And she had blown through the White House budget, which had a very small budget for the first family, to do events. And that was mostly supposed to be events for dignitaries, or maybe some kind of announcement or something like that. But the pool of money wasn't infinite, and Hillary had blown through almost the entire budget after the first 2 or 3 weeks and was very upset there wasn't any more money. And it was because there's not an infinite amount of money. Now, if this was a dictatorship, you could just keep using money, but this isn't. The first family is merely our leaders. They're not our overlords. They don't get to just take all of our money and just do whatever they want with it. They're supposed to be leading us and administrating the executive, not spending money as fast as they can on personal endeavors, which is why there is a budget for the White House. So I bring you back to Kamala's thing. It's expensive to have a production company create a fictional TV show and to hire child actors. So where did she get that money? Was she pulling that out of the White House pool? Was she able to requisition money from somewhere else? Has she been overdrawing in the White House accounts? Who approved that? I think that there definitely needs to be some oversight on this, because that's a lot of money to spend on that. And is that really the best use of the White House event funds, is to create a fictional TV show starring the vice president? I would venture to guess no. But, here I am, a fiscal conservative, so, it's a dying breed. Another big question I have is, did Kamala know that they were child actors? It's entirely possible she had no idea that this was a fabricated event. And that goes back to the question of why, was it maybe decided by somebody that it wasn't the best idea for Kamala to interact with genuine children who might react in a unpredictable way? And so it's possible that Kamala did not even know that she was getting Truman showed, and that the people around her were actors, the paid to be there, paid to interact with her, and that regardless of what she said, they were paid to look as though they were highly engaged. So that's a question I think needs to be answered. And then also, it seems like to hire a full-blown production company that specializes in creating fictional children's content to create this TV show. Again, it's a YouTube Originals TV show, same as Cobra Kai. You wouldn't think that Cobra Kai is that's not a factual reality documentary, right? No, this same thing with Kamala Harris. This is a fictional TV show that she's got. It's not a real documentary. It's not documenting real events. It's a fictional TV show that was written by a children's entertainment company and displays child actors who are paid to be there and interact in scripted ways. So this is a pretty bold step. If you'd asked me last week if I thought the vice president would create a fictional TV show with child actors and purport that they were real, it was a real genuine interaction, I would have thought that was crazy, because that would be such a big leap from what the norm is, or what I thought the norm was. So my question is, it seems like the office of the vice president was very comfortable hiring this agency to create this production for them. So again, is this something that they've done before? Because it seems like they were awful comfortable doing it. So is this something that they've done before? And it's important to know if this is something that they've done before. And this being creating a fictional event and attempting to pass it off as a genuine interaction. It's important to know if they've done that before, because we've seen Kamala talking with other supposed dignitaries on her trips to Guatemala and other places over the past 10 months of the Biden administration. And I know this is about to sound real crazy, but do we know for sure that those were real dignitaries and not actors? How would we know? Again, I know I might be losing some of you guys here, but just bear with me here, because I think I want you to go down this logic trail with me. A week ago, I would have thought that it would be crazy for the vice president to hire child actors to make it look like she was good at interacting with children. So now that we know that happened, why would I believe? What evidence is there that the dignitaries that she was meeting with in Guatemala and that she's supposedly been talking to over the last 10 months were any of those actors? I don't know. And that is because, why don't I know? Now, what's the likelihood that they were actors? Probably pretty low. But at this point, I would have thought that it would be really low probability that they would have used child actors for an event like this. But they did. So why? Because they have a compulsive lying. They're compulsive liars. They have to lie. Even when it's easy to be authentic, even when it's easy to be in a real location, they are driven to create a fake location because they have to lie. And I think it's a neuroses of the elites, that they're so often lying that even when it's easy to tell the truth, they're just more comfortable with lying about it. And I think that because of this situation, I think that there actually needs to be a law passed that would force sitting political officials to have displayed on screen prominently a disclaimer that if they're interacting with paid actors, that needs to be shown on the screen. Because, like I said, this video with these paid actor children, that was passed off as a real, genuine event. There was no disclaimer on the screen that says, "Oh, Kamala's interacting with paid actors. This isn't a real interaction." And I think that needs to be known, because now I have to question every time I see her talking to a supposed civilian on screen. I don't know if they're real. I don't know if they're paid actors. Again, I never would have thought that these kids. The first time I saw this clip, I, like everybody else, was like, wow, like Kamala is cringy, like these poor kids. But then we found out a couple days later, oh, no, not these poor kids. These poor kids were paid actors. So now if I see her talking to a foreign dignitary, I don't know what the dignitaries in Guatemala look like. I can probably look up on Wikipedia the president of Guatemala, maybe some of their more prominent, politicians, but just random officials from Guatemalan government or any other government, you guys don't know what they look like. You're not familiar with them in person. I'm not. And I guess we could go through and look up their pictures and compare and see if they match their Wikipedia profiles every time. But at this point, I don't know. I don't know what they look like. So I don't know if they're flopping in fake ones. I don't know if Kamala is just producing fictional content. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And I know this sounds kind of crazy. It's like Fox, they wouldn't really create a fictional event where Kamala's talking to a paid actor and pretending that's a foreign dignitary, or would they? No, that's crazy. That's crazy talk, Fox. And I agree that it's crazy talk. But I also think it's absolutely insane that Kamala was talking to paid actor children and trying to pass it off as a real event with genuine STEM children that weren't paid actors. So again, you got to ask yourself, and that is why I think that they're actually, and I'm serious about this, and I don't think anybody's going to actually do anything about this, but there really, really should be a law about this, that if a sitting politician is having a filmed interaction with a paid actor, they absolutely have to post some kind of disclaimer on screen. We cannot, because most Americans, they're not going to sit there and kind of look at this. They probably didn't see the update to the story because the mainstream media is not covering it. It's just kind of a, this alternative group this alternative media that's actually like looking at, oh, hey, these are child actors. So most of America is not going to see that these are child actors. Most of America is going to think, oh, Kamala Harris, the Office of the Vice President, they must have had some kind of competition for real STEM students. Isn't that amazing? And look at all this diverse group of STEM students from all over the country, and Kamala's interacting with them, and they love her. Oh, wow. They must, and you've got children. Again, this was a children's production company. This Sinking Ship Entertainment. They specialize in producing children's content, children's fictional content. So the other problem with this is that this is being beamed to children. This is the target audience for this fictional TV show is children. So you've got a lot of adults looking at this and saying, oh, okay, well, look at Kamala, she's interacting with these kids, and these kids love her. She must be a fun, entertaining person. When the truth is the complete opposite. And then you've got children who have been shown in research. One of the reasons why advertising so heavily regulated, and there's been a big issue with this on YouTube because YouTube doesn't target age groups very well with their advertising, is that there's a lot of research that children are unable to parse between fictional content and real content. They're unable to determine the difference between advertising content and educational content. They just kind of absorb it all as genuine because kids don't have a understanding of irony yet because they haven't developed an understanding of base reality yet. They're still learning about all of the things. To have a sense of irony, you have to know a lot of stuff first. Kids are blank slates. They're more genuine in their interactions, and they assume that people talking to them and telling them things, they assume that they're being genuine too. And so they don't have this understanding of irony the way that adults do. And so when they're watching this content that is aimed at children, produced by a children's entertainment company that is starring Kamala, they're looking at this and saying like, oh, wow, these kids are having all this fun. And look at Kamala. They love Kamala. I love Kamala too. And you see this kind of thing where you had a scandal a couple of months ago with the illegal immigrants being given these like welcome bags full of like goodies and stuff. And one of the goodies in them was a book about Kamala Harris being a superhero. And it was obvious propaganda, and it was a children's book. And so you've got just kind of example after example after example of Kamala Harris being the star of fictional content aimed at children. That's real strange, guys. That's real strange. That's it. Again, I'm not saying every interaction she's having on TV is 100% fictionalized, scripted, or that, all the dignitaries she met with in Guatemala were fictional people that were paid actors. It's possible, though. And I think that the fact that the Biden presidency has been shown to be so inauthentic to create fictional scenarios at any given time. And Joe Biden's version of this might seem a little bit more subtle, right? But now after seeing this Kamala story, why is Joe Biden creating a fictional view of the Rose Garden behind him? surely he has built rooms in the real White House that have the real Rose Garden behind him. But he has this desire, and the people around him have this deep desire to lie, to create these fabricated events. And so even though the Rose Garden and a window looking out on the Rose Garden is just across the street, they've gone through the effort, and you, the taxpayer, have paid for the effort to create a virtual reality window that looks at a fake version of the Rose Garden. And they don't have any disclaimers on that. You think you might just see a picture of that, or your parents or your grandparents or somebody at work might see that, and they would just look at that and they wouldn't think twice about it. They'd just be like, oh, Joe's sitting at the White House. And is it a big deal that he's not really sitting at the White House? No. But is it you compare that to the Kamala situation, where a casual viewer would say, oh, Kamala's interacting with children. They love her. But they're not. It's not real. It's not real. And they're really pushing the envelope. I don't think Biden with his fake window is pushing the envelope that hard, but it's pushing a little bit. Kamala, starring in a fictional TV show with paid child actors, trying to pass it off as genuine interaction with real children, that is just kicking the doors down on the envelope. There's no more, you just obliterated it, put it in the shredder. No more envelope at all. That's concerning. And putting into the heads of the American population that you can't trust. We've known for a long time, right? You can't trust what you see on TV. We've known that. But this is kind of a next level fictionalization of it. And it's funny because the news media has kind of been doing this for a while. We've got lots of examples of CNN over the last couple of years having, they'll bring signs and they will organize people into kind of a fake protest with signs that CNN brought and get them to hold them. And then they'll have a fake interview with the protesters about whatever they're protesting about. Even though they're not really protesting it, CNN brought them there to pretend like they were protesting. We know from election night, I think after 2016, that election night, CNN was interviewing somebody on the street, and it was one of the CNN cameramen. But they didn't say that. Somebody in the CNN offices accidentally said, oh, hey, I recognize that guy as one of our cameramen. But the interviewer on the street, they were trying to pass it off as a genuine random person, not a CNN paid employee. And they got caught on that. But how many times we don't know. How many times has CNN interviewed somebody that wasn't a real genuine person? They were just another CNN employee faking it. We don't know. But now that we caught them, now the question is, now that we caught CNN interviewing one of their own, trying to pass it off as a genuine interview, that calls into question all of their interviews. And so with Kamala here, she got caught using child actors. So that calls into question every time she's been on camera with somebody. Are they real? I don't know. Are they paid actors? I don't know. But that's why we would need, and this will never happen. This is a pipe dream. It's just, I guess it's my little way of, what is political commentary? Political commentary is you guys tune in to listen to me complain about stuff, and usually it's stuff that you also want to complain about, and you just listen to me complain about it. It makes everybody feel better. Sometimes I try to propose solutions. So me saying, hey, there should probably be a law that says, if you're a sitting politician and you are interacting with paid actors, you need to have a disclaimer on screen. That's me proposing a solution, not just complaining. But, the likelihood of that solution ever coming to any kind of fruition is essentially zero. So, but I tried. So next time you see Kamala on TV, just remember the last time she was on TV, she was surrounded by paid actors. So think about that next time you see her on TV. Alrighty. Our next story. No. What happened to all these shelves? They're all empty. Oh, no. All right, so our next story is about a series of stories, actually. It's a collection of stories surrounding the Bare Shelves Joe hashtag that has been going around recently. And that's part of the reason why we named the show like this tonight, Bare Shelves Joe's Boat Parade. We'll get to the boat parade here in a second. But basically, I just wanted to start off with some rapid-fire economic metrics. So you got a few clips here from news stories that we'll just read through real quickly. Just kind of get the gist of some recent economic metrics that are well, they're a little problematic. So we got from the New York Times, consumer prices jumped last month, a problem for Washington and Wall Street. It's also a problem for you who have to pay for stuff. But, Washington and Wall Street first, am I right? So, New York Times, let me zoom in a little bit here. Yep, too much. All right, so New York Times says, a key reading of the consumer prices jumped more than expected last month. Data released on Wednesday showed raising the stakes for Data released on Wednesday showed raising the stakes for the White House and Federal Reserve as they continue to wager that rapid inflation will cool as the economy returns to normal. The consumer price index climbed 5.4% in September, when compared to September in the prior year. More than expected. More than expected in a Bloomberg survey of economists, and faster than its 5.3% increase from August. Oh yeah, all the Bloomberg economists, they're so much smarter than you. They weren't expecting it to be 5.4%. I don't know. I was kind of expecting it to be at least over 5%. Let's see here. So from August to September, the index rose 0.4%, also above expectations. I don't know so much that they were expectations from those economists so much as hopes and prayers. But either way, the real number was above those hopes and prayers. The gains, it's losses for you. It's a gain in the number of inflation. But the gains in inflation came as housing prices firmed and as food, especially meat and eggs, cost consumers more. Stripping out volatile food and fuel, inflation is still rapid at 4% throughout the last year, or throughout the last month. It's funny that they describe food and fuel as volatile, because as people who eat and drive cars, you may have noticed the volatility is really only going in one direction. Volatility kind of implies a up and down, and a rapid up and down, and we've really just been seeing a rapid up. So here they continue. Monthly gains have slowed from their breakneck pace earlier this year. They popped as much as 0.9% this summer. And that's meaning that the inflation rate went up as high as 0.9% month to month. But they remain abnormally rapid. The price pressures have not been fading as rapidly as policymakers had hoped. And we can see a graph from the consumer price index over the last couple of years. It might have been helpful to have this a little bit more zoomed in, but we're going to go into a BLS graph here in a second. But you can see that there was, there was some stuff that seems to have happened at the beginning of this year that seemed to have just shot inflation through the roof. Now, some of that was expected. If you guys have been watching us for about a year and a half here, back towards the beginning of COVID, before the second round of stimulus checks, I had done kind of a analysis on where I thought inflation was going because of all of the proposed spending. And I had said about 18 months ago that 18 months from then, which is around now, we would probably be seeing out of control inflation because of all the money printing. And I gave various reasons why, which I'm going to kind of recover here as we go through this section. But just remember that the Bloomberg economists were not expecting inflation to be this high. I was expecting inflation to be this high 18 months ago. Maybe I'm better than the Bloomberg economists. Alrighty. So our next little short story here is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Let's see here. So we're going to look at their chart here, which just shows the 12-month percentage change in the consumer price index from selected categories in September 2021. So this is comparing September 2021 to September 2020. And this is that same 5.6% consumer price inflation that we saw, or 5.4% from the previous article. This is just breaking it out by category. So you can see for all items, which let me try and zoom in here a little bit more, though I don't know how much that's going to help. Let's see here. Oh, that did actually help. Okay, so for all items, 5.4%, which is what we saw. But if you break it out by categories, look at energy. Look at energy over here. Oof, 24.8%. Wow. Wow, that's a hell of an inflation. So you are paying 24.8% more for energy this September than you were paying last September. Everybody real happy that Joe Biden got elected and canceled all of the oil pipelines, canceled all the exploratory drilling, canceled all of the permits for current drilling. Everybody real happy about that. So clicking in on this, we can actually drill down into different types of energy. And this is, you guys better be sitting down because it's going to knock your socks off. So click on energy. We've got energy commodities and energy services. Energy services are like things that are like pumped to your house. So if you've got electric lines or natural gas being pumped into your house, well, the electric lines aren't being pumped into your house, but you know what I mean. Those are considered services. Commodities are things that you would like go and get and put in something. So that would be, we click on that and see that. That would be gasoline and other kinds of fuel oil. So gasoline, that's pretty important to everybody. Look at the breakdown on that. If you break it down to just gasoline, 42.1% inflation from this September to last September. So this September, you paid 42.1% more for gasoline than you did last September. Whoa. Whoa, boy. Oh, man. That is, wow, that's rough. That is really, really rough. And gas is just, that is where you really, really hammer the lower and the middle class. Especially the lower class, because they're probably driving to work if they're not in a city. If they're in a city, then they can take public transit, though, you know, maybe you're rolling the dice with that. And the big cities are kind of shut down anyways. So, but if you're lower income, you're paying for gas. That's going to be a significant portion of your income, and you're not going to have any buffer to pay for more gas. I'm lucky to be middle class, and so if gas goes up, I get upset about it, but it doesn't like wreck me. I'm not, game over. I can't pay for this. I've got some buffer in my income because I'm middle class. But lower middle class and low class, they don't have any buffer to absorb this 42%. Jesus Christ. And it's not slowing. It doesn't show any signs of slowing. Inflation this month was higher than it was last month. And last month they were saying it was transitory. I think what they meant was that 5% was transitory and we're headed towards 10% per month. But, I digress on that. So you wonder why they try to wrap everything into one number. The CPI being, all items, it's 5.4%. That's pretty bad, but it's not the end of the world. If they started reporting the breakout numbers like what I just did, I guarantee you, I would be so surprised. Send me in chat. Has anybody else seen this breakdown that this month was 42.1% inflation on gasoline? I'm sure you all know that gasoline's going up, but has anybody told you, have you seen from any other media source 42.1% inflation from that? And it was so easy for me to do this. I'm just at bls.gov. You can see this, bls.gov/CPI. And you can interact and click on that map too. If the broad American public could see, BLS is showing that we've got 42% inflation on gasoline. Man, Joe Biden is lucky that his approval rating is so high. All right. Our next little short story here is called the quits rate. So this is something that got this quits number spiked this month, and so it was it kind of got some notoriety. But the quits is a number that's been tracked for about 20 years, and basically what it does is it's looking at the number of people who quit their job. Not that were fired or were laid off or whatever, but that just quit their job. And so, and what that's supposed to measure, traditionally what that's measured is people's confidence that they can go find another job. Typically when you quit a job, you're going to go look for another job. It's not, and again, this isn't including retirements. This is that you've just decided I'm done with this job. And so it's meant to gauge people's confidence to have some kind of mobility in the workplace, so they could quit one job and find what they would hope to be better employment elsewhere. If you're confident you can find better employment elsewhere, you're more likely to quit. And so this number has been used as kind of a proxy for that confidence level. Though current situation has kind of broken that assumption. So we've got a record number of quits this month, or for August was the last measurement that we had. So in August, this is in thousands. So 4,270,000, which is 4.3 million people. 4.3 million people quit their jobs in August. That is a record on the quits since quits has been measured. And that is up from the previous month in July of about 4 million, which was up from 3.9 million in June and 3.6 million in May. Now, the problem with this is unemployment's very high. You would typically expect that as people quit, they would be picking jobs back up, but unemployment is still extremely high, and job vacancies is still extremely high. So this quits number is not really reflective of people being mobile and finding better jobs. They're just quitting their jobs and not finding any jobs, which is a problem. So this quits number being so high and the assumption about job mobility being broken because of various COVID restrictions, that's not looking real great for the economy. And that might explain why inflation's going so high, because there's not anybody making products. So you've got fewer and fewer products because we've broken all the supply chains. And you've got more and more dollars because we've been printing as fast as we possibly can. And what happens with basic supply and demand is, well, you've got more dollars chasing fewer products and prices go up. That's why we're seeing inflation. All right, and the last little tidbit we've got, which I don't think I put a slide in for, was the September jobs report came out this week, and we added 194,000 jobs, which is not great. Last month we only added 235,000 jobs, but the projection was that we were going to add like 750,000 jobs. We had missed the projection by more than 3 times. And this month the projections were lowered to 500,000 jobs. And so adding only 194,000 jobs, we still missed the mark quite substantially. And so at the same month, or around the same time that we've got 4.3 million people quitting, you're only adding in less than 200,000 jobs. Right now we've got something like 11 million job vacancies, and you've got unemployment at approximately that level too. For some reason, and there's a lot of theories as to why, and I don't think I'm going to go into all of them right now, but for some reason, you've got a lot of people who need jobs, and you've got a lot of jobs that need people, but they're just, for some reason, there's some kind of friction preventing them from linking up and preventing people from going and getting employment and preventing employers from finding employees. A lot of reasons for that friction, though perhaps the primary one is Bear Shells Joe. So we have kind of with all of those economic metrics in mind, we have the story about shipping disruptions. So why are so many queuing to get into the U.S. And they mean ships? So this, I'm not really read through much of this, but basically, as you guys may have heard, there has been a large backup of cargo container ships coming into ports and being unable to load and unload cargo into the United States. And you've got pictures like this, as you can see, just hundreds of ships all sitting offshore. This is outside of California, outside of Los Angeles. And they're just not able to get docked, not able to get their cargo unloaded. Some of them are sitting out, just hanging out in the harbor for weeks, waiting to be unloaded. And there's a lot of questions as to why. And there is a little graphic, which I'll show here in a second. But this kind of shows the congestion rates this month compared to months past. And you can see you've got this just dramatic spike in cargo container ships congesting around Los Angeles Bay. And this is not just LA's port. This is happening at essentially all U.S. ports right now. And the BBC has a little infographic which kind of explains why. So what they've got here is under a normal situation, you've got ships carry containers into port. Containers are checked and unloaded. Lorries, which they mean trucks. They're stupid Brits. Lorries wait at ports. Goods are loaded onto lorries. Empty containers are placed back on the ship to free up space on the port, and then the lorries take the goods off to distribution centers. That's how it's supposed to work. What's happening right now is that ships are carrying containers into port because of all the unemployment and COVID and all that sort of stuff. There's not enough staff to move the containers and not enough drivers to take the contents of the containers away. So containers empty and full, they start stacking up at the ports because there's not enough people to unload them. Because of this, there's no space at the port to unload ships, and so other ships that want to unload there, they can't, and so they're diverted to other ports. And then other ports also get overloaded and congested, and they have the same problem with the lack of workers. And so that's why there's all these backed up ships and why all of these products are unable to get to port. We've created this fantastic system for ourselves, rather our elites did, where over the last 20 years, we absolutely gutted domestic manufacturing, sent all of that overseas with the promise that, well, even if you lost your job at the factory, you can still get your stuff because we'll ship it in. We'll ship it in from China. Well, now you can't even ship it in from China. I mean, that whole globalism scheme, it didn't even last a generation. It was less than 20 years and the whole thing fell to pieces because of a disease. And now we can't get our stuff in and we don't have domestic manufacturing capacity to catch back up. And there's really, I don't see any mechanism for this to get better. There's no reason why all of a sudden the ports would start working efficiently. There's no mechanism by which they would achieve full staffing. So really, this is just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. There's stories right now that shipping containers that used to cost like, a couple $1,000s, now going for tens of thousands of dollars because all of these containers are either stuck on ships or they're stuck in ports. And they're not where they need to be at. And so you've got factories in China that need to move their stuff around, and they can't because all the containers are just queuing up waiting to be unloaded. And so there's no new containers to put stuff in. And so containers are stupid expensive now. And even if they do find a container, it might be months or a year before it gets to port. So you got a lot of problems. This is going to be a worldwide disaster rather quickly. And I think it already is. I think it's just going to take a few more months for it to play out. Now, theoretically, we have a cabinet position that's supposed to deal with transportation stuffs, such as shipping, and that'd be Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. Let's see here. So we've got a story from Indy Star, which I believe was the state where Pete was mayor at. So he's mayor of South Bend, Indiana. So they say Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has pushed back on some conservatives' criticism over his decision to take paternal leave after the birth of his two newly adopted twins and his handling of supply chain issues. So a lot of people didn't know this until Pete got back this week, but apparently Pete's been on vacation on paternity leave for the last 2 months, and nobody noticed until he got back and started talking about stuff. We just thought that he was generally incompetent. We didn't realize that he was just gone. And it's kind of funny that he's on paternity leave because he's gay, and I am too. So it's no problem there. But he can't have a kid. Not that's not how that's not how two guys work. And so it's interesting that, within the first year of him being given this position, he's got kids that he adopted, that he chose to adopt. It wasn't a thing that just happened. He went through a schedule and planned this out, and he probably paid a lot of money for it. And instead of waiting until after, he had the benefit of being able to wait to do this until after he was done with his cabinet secretary position. And he chose to do it within the first year. And then he took off 2 months of work. He hasn't even been at work for a whole year. And he took off 2 months for a really a self-imposed thing. Let's see here. So Pete says, what we have right now is an administration that's, he's trying to defend why he took paternity leave for 2 months during the largest, as they'll say here in a second, the amid the global supply chain disruptions, probably the largest supply chain disruption in the world ever. So Pete says, what we have right now is an administration that is actually pro-family. The former South Bend mayor said on MSNBC on Friday, quote, I am blessed to be able to experience that as an employee and being able to have the flexibility to take care of our newborn children, which is, by the way, work. It's joyful work. It's wonderful work, but it's definitely work. So I think Pete's misunderstanding the criticism of him taking off of work in that he's not a hard worker. And I think most parents would understand, and I don't have any kids, but I understand that children are probably difficult to take care of. So I think he's misunderstanding what the criticism is. The criticism is not that he's not working hard in some capacity. The criticism is that he was given a particular job to do, that being transportation secretary, and that his labors are not going into the thing for which he was given the job to work on. That's great that he's doing something that's work, but he has a job and he's supposed to be putting his labor efforts into that job. He's supposed to be putting his work into transportation secretary. So I understand that raising children, especially newborn children, I understand that that's, quote, definitely work, but it's definitely not work on being a transportation secretary, Pete. So that's just some very obvious and bad faith response to what is some genuinely valid criticism that he's not doing his job right now. The criticism comes amid global supply chain disruptions linked to the COVID-19 pandemic as demand has increased. Some manufacturers still aren't operating at pre-pandemic levels, and some logistics companies are understaffed. Elsewhere, ports face bottlenecks. As Fox News host Tucker Carlson mused about the supply chain crisis during his Thursday night show, he mocked Buttigieg for taking paternity leave. Tucker said, quote, Buttigieg has been on leave from his job since August after adopting a child. Paternity leave, they call it. Trying to figure out how to breastfeed, Carlson said on Thursday in a comment that some viewed as homophobic. No word on how that went. Tucker, I agree with Tucker. I don't think it's homophobic. I think it's accurate. That I don't know. I would understand if he was a woman, if he was the mother, but he's not. So I guess lucky him that he gets to take paternity leave. Let's see here. That's all we're going to read on that. So during the greatest supply chain crisis that we've ever had, unprecedented levels of ships backing up at ports, the transportation secretary, who's gay, took off 2 months to take care of a child that he's unable to breastfeed. Just so you know that. Let's see here. We've got another story here about the supply chain, not just bottlenecking, but also you might have noticed that there's less variety at the grocery stores and gas stations. I've definitely noticed that. And this story is actually from a few months ago. So you know that it has nothing to do with Pete. It's got nothing to do with the boating crisis, but it's actually it's an article from a couple of months ago that's explaining what we're seeing right now. And this happens a lot where the media will put out, especially CNN, they'll put out an article that's more or less true at the time, and then several months later, some kind of social event will change the context, and they'll have to forget that they said this. So, gosh damn it. Get out of here, pop up. So CNN, why brands like Oreo are cutting back on wacky flavors right now. So we're only going to read a little bit of this, but CNN says, Shoppers are stocking up on items to eat at home, and they're finding less variety on grocery store shelves. That's partially because items are selling out more quickly than they used to, but it's also because major food companies, like the ones making our cookies, chips, canned soups, have been paring down their product offerings. When stay-at-home orders went into effect this spring, Mondelez, General Mills, PepsiCo, Jam Smuckers, Campbell's, Coca-Cola, and others saw a massive spike in demand for some of their products. To help meet that increase, they sped up production lines on their most popular items, and that meant cutting back on more fringe offerings. That translates to fewer varieties of Jif peanut butter, Oreo cookies, and Frito-Lay chips at the stores. The reason behind the move? Manufacturing plants for major food companies typically have to pause their production lines to switch out the product and packaging when they go from making one variety of cereal to another, for example. So this is from way before the hashtag Bear Shelves Biden started trending. This is way back in June of 2020. So that was over a year ago. And what we're seeing is the effects of that. We're seeing less variety at the grocery stores, and now we're seeing just less stuff at the grocery stores. Now, this is what's funny is that you're seeing, and I'll pull this picture back up. You're seeing a lot of images like this on Twitter right now on the hashtag Bear Shelves Biden. And what you're seeing along with that is also people from different areas posting pictures of full shelves. I've got a couple different grocery stores in my town. Some of them are more heavily stocked than others, though I did 2 weeks ago, I went to go find lunch meat turkey, and they didn't have any. They only had ham. And I don't eat ham because it's not as good as turkey. So I'm seeing that shrinkage in variety. I've certainly noticed the last year at many convenience stores that you go to the drink aisle and, some of the fridges are just empty, or they've only got one row of stuff in there. And so we've seen this kind of faltering of the full shelves, infinite variety grocery stores that we've known for, before 2 years ago. Over the last year, we've seen the variety diminish, and then we started seeing the depth of the shelves diminish a little bit. But there's still stuff on them. Maybe not as many varieties, maybe not as deep as they used to be. But now some areas are starting to see just whole sections of shelves. They're just empty. They've faltered so much that they're just empty now. But that is going to be localized to areas that are further away from major highways. I happen to be on one of the most major highways in all of America. It's one of the top 10 most heavily trafficked arteries in America. So my store shelves, we're still getting a lot of deliveries. I can probably go to most of my stores right now and take pictures of full shelves. Some of the shelves might be a little bit empty or might be shallowly stocked. If I go a couple hours away from here, where it's not as heavily traveled, I bet you there's some empty store shelves there. So it kind of just depends on where you're at. The concern is not that every store shelf is empty. The concern is that those areas that are a little further away from the major arteries, the major highways, that they're starting to falter on how full they can keep their shelves stocked. Because similar to how we went from fully stocked shelves with lots of variety to fully stocked shelves with less variety, and then to shallowly stocked shelves, and then some people are starting to see less shelves. Just because it's not hitting everywhere at once doesn't mean it's not coming. So these further off the beaten path areas, these smaller cities, more rural areas, those are kind of our canaries in the coal mine. If they're starting to see their shelves go bare, that means it's starting. That means that you should expect that to start coming towards you sooner than later. So it's funny that you've got a bunch of idiots on Twitter saying, like, well, my shelves are stocked heavily. Well, great for you. Drive a couple hours away from your major city or away from a major highway and take another picture. You're probably going to start seeing some issues. So I don't think that these pictures on Twitter showing fully stocked shelves, I don't think that disproves the Bear Shelves Biden narrative. The Bear Shelves Biden narrative is also it's a bit of a meme. I think it's possibly overblowing the current problem, though I don't think that you can overstate the issue that we're having such supply chain shuttering that you're starting to see shelves go bare. Any amount of shelves going bare in America is a problem, because that implies, and we're seeing that with the shipping, that implies major structural failures in the supply chain, which, if those things break, which it appears that they have and are breaking, it's really, really hard to fix those things. And the supply chain disruption, this could be problematic for years, possibly decades to come. And so, if your store shelves are currently full, that's great, but don't think that it's going to be like that forever, because with people in the more fringe areas, I'm sure that they thought that their store shelves were going to be full forever too, and then they weren't. Alrighty. Our last story for tonight is an update on Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, who we've talked about a few times on the show here. Scheller had the audacity to call out his superiors for the debacle in Afghanistan, and he remains the only, for him calling out his superiors, he was arrested and put into military prison and charged with, I guess, being disrespectful. I'm not sure. Well, we'll get into that in a second here. But he remains the only person prosecuted, the only member of the military held to any kind of account for the entire debacle in Afghanistan, which is something that we covered very heavily on the show, so I don't want to rehash all of that. But obviously, Afghanistan went very poorly, and obviously some people did some stuff wrong, and nobody was held to account except for Steve Scheller. So on Thursday, Scheller pleaded guilty to 6 charges, including showing contempt towards officials, showing disrespect towards superior commissioned officers, willfully disobeying a superior commissioned officer, and dereliction in the performance of duties, failure to obey an order or regulation, and conduct unbecoming of a gentleman and an officer. The plea deal meant that Scheller would be given the sentence of being issued a letter of reprimand and forfeiture of $5,000 worth of pay and discharged from the military. So he pled guilty to all those things because the alternative was that he was probably going to be in jail for a really long time, because he was a political enemy, essentially. So him pleading guilty to those things is more of an official capacity. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's morally guilty of those things, which I think that he's morally unguilty of all of those things. He's morally innocent of all those things. But that's how plea deals work, is that you'll plead guilty to charges, whether you did them or not, because you think that your odds are better with this deal than going through the process and trying to figure out whether or not you're actually guilty with a trial. So the sentence is considered light for the related charges. The sentence is also far lighter than the prosecution was demanding. They wanted to charge him 2/3 on, the prosecution wanted to charge him 2/3 on month's pay each month for the next year, among other punishments. The last question to be answered regarding his punishment is whether he will leave the military with an honorable or a general or a dishonorable discharge. So there's a couple different ways you can leave the military. There's honorable discharge, there's general discharge, and there's dishonorable discharge. The way that will leave the military is still being decided. So it's not been determined whether or not his discharge will be honorable or not. This will be his discharge status will be determined by the Secretary of the Navy, who we are somewhat familiar with in previous stories on the show, as the Secretary of the Navy is the guy that wanted all of the sailors to read Ibram X. Kendi's book about how white people are awful and how black people are, have mental defects that causes them to act the way that they do, all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure he's going to look very fondly on Scheller here. The judge handling Scheller's case recommended an honorable or a general discharge. The judge also questioned the conduct of the Marine Corps leadership in the case and noted potential grounds for unlawful command influence. Unlawful command influence happens when leaders utter words or take actions that illegally guide the outcome of a court-martial trial or undermine the public's confidence in the armed forces by appearing to tip the scales of justice. The judge repeatedly asked Scheller questions about coercion. He asked if his time in the brig was used to coerce an outcome. He asked if the confinement was severe and unnecessary. Scheller spent 9 days in the brig, partly on the notion that he was a, quote, flight risk, a charge Scheller and his team and his legal team strongly denied. The veiled threat provided by the judge that the defense had an avenue towards dismissing the case on the grounds that command influence may be why they agreed to the lighter sentencing. So basically the judge kind of saw through this whole thing as bullshit. The judge was essentially implying during the case that it was in fact the command structure that had prosecuted Scheller, that they were in fact in the wrong, and that Scheller was essentially right in criticizing them, and that it was wrong for the command to go after Scheller so severely for calling them out. And so the judge essentially said, it looks like you guys were trying to cover your asses here, and you were trying to make Scheller the fall guy when you guys were really in the wrong, and you knew you were in the wrong, and you knew what Scheller was saying was right. Because what Scheller said was, I expect somebody in command to have taken responsibility for the, series of horrifically bad decisions made in Afghanistan that led to the collapse of Kabul, the death of 13 servicemen in the final days of the evacuation, and then just the general debacle of the evacuation and the abandonment of, hundreds to thousands of Americans in this fallen country. And so the outcome of this case is interesting because it means that there's kind of almost no route anymore for a subordinate officer to call out a superior in the military now. There's no way for a subordinate to hold to account their superior, because this has essentially set the precedent that that's illegal. It's illegal to hold your superiors accountable for their actions. Because that's essentially what Scheller was asking for, was that they be held accountable. And, well, we saw what happened there. And so the judge here is kind of acknowledging that it appears that the command was embarrassed by Scheller having called them out. And the only reason why they were embarrassed is because Scheller was correct. He was above target when he said that. That's why they reacted so severely. And so the judge is pointing that out, that, it looks like you guys were trying to harass this guy because he said the truth, and you guys didn't like the truth, and you over prosecuted him. You're trying to ruin his career and ruin his service record because he said something accurate that, namely the accuracy being that his command structure sucks, that they're a bunch of idiots, and that they don't know what they're doing, and that they refuse to take accountability for what they're unable to do. But, so far as Scheller is concerned personally, this is headed in the right direction. Certainly there was a lot of ways this could have played out where he was just in military prison forever. That wouldn't be good. So as of now, he is, I believe, released, and I think he's still got some hurdles to overcome. And it remains to be seen when he's discharged whether or not it's an honorable or dishonorable discharge. Obviously, honorable would be the correct stance. I think that he, in calling out his leadership and trying to hold them to account, was obviously acting in the I think within the value structure the Marines try to have with an intense accountability, and his leaders being political in nature, as the upper brass of the military has become. They've become politicians, not soldiers, and they don't want to be held to account, because politicians never want to be held to account. They just want power, and that's clear that the upper brass in the military have become like the politicians, and Scheller was calling them out on it. So good for him. We'll keep following this story. If there's any updates, hopefully he receives an honorable discharge. And Really, it's concerning, though, because even if he fares out well personally, just the fact that this happened to him really puts a chilling effect on the rest of the military. Again, it makes it difficult for there to be any avenue in any of the branches for a subordinate to hold to account their superior without it being considered an illegal action, as it was with Scheller here. So that is the show for tonight. I thank you guys for joining us. Much appreciated. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. I would go buy gas now, stock up on groceries and toilet paper now. If you haven't done your Christmas shopping and are hoping to get something for Christmas, go shopping now. I don't know what's going to happen the next few months here, but I don't think it's going to get any better. We don't have any, everything seems to be getting worse, and there is no, I'm not seeing any mechanisms by which it gets better. So that's, not a very happy way to end the show, but hopefully with my happy, cheery cadence in my voice, you'll feel better about it. So again, have a good weekend. Stay safe. Take care of the ones you love. And I will see you next week. Maybe a little bit earlier this week if I feel like gaming with Dyer here. But you guys will see us later. And again, thank you guys for watching. Trevize signing off. See ya.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.